Hello, welcome to the channel. Tonight we're going to be discussing something new. It'll be something a little different. We thought we'd discuss something that we both love, films. Hopefully, getting a long-term series going forward on some more kind of underappreciated, based, dare we say, films that might have gone under the radar. And we thought, where better to start with a cult favorite of ours, Shot Caller. It's
So,
directed by Roman Roy. No, I caught you off there. Directed by Rick Roman Roy, a director kind of known for prison films, starring Nikolai Costa-Waldau of Game of Thrones fame. Absolutely brilliant film, and we'll just quickly get the plot summarized for those of you who haven't seen it.
there you go. Now I can come in at the right time. So
Oh, yeah,
basically,
now.
we're following Money, who you're seeing right there on the screen, and Money is basically this investment broker, and he's going out with his wife one evening, and they're going on a double date with a good friend of theirs, and this is his best friend from what you can assume. He goes to a couple shots of them basically making deals together, and so he has a family, Money. He has his wife and his kid. And his kid, the first time we see him, is very, very young. But anyway, they have a nice dinner together. It's very wholesome. We see the chemistry between these four, right? The wife, the husband, and their friends. However, on the drive back, and obviously they're a bit tipsy, they're a bit drunk, they get into a car accident where he basically runs a red light only a little bit. It's only a tiny bit, but the person that was coming in from the other side crashes into the side of them, and he kills his best friend. And so not only is he living with that guilt just right then and there, everybody's freaking out in the car, but he also gets sued. And that's where the problem really comes in, because at the start, he kind of was hoping that his best friend's wife would forgive him. However, she doesn't. She decides to sue them, and she decides to sue them for everything. She decides to sue them for the house. She decides to sue them for everything. So this puts Money in a very weird predicament where he either has to fight the jury, he has to fight the case and try to come out with only 18 months in prison, or in exchange of not selling the house, in exchange of keeping some of his assets and therefore keeping his wife and kids stable, he does a couple of years in prison. Now, from when we see him in the film, he goes into the couple of years, and at the start, he basically is trying to be safe, right? That we see them in like this big, huge room, almost like a gymnasium. Pardon?
A big maximum security prison in California. So the classic, you've got your Hispanics and your blacks, that type of
That's it, exactly. And before they take them into the prison as well, we see this big gymnasium with everybody sleeping in their bunk beds. And in the first night, he sees a black guy basically get raped, right? And so what's on his mind right then and there is his insecurities, him trying to be secure, trying to find somebody to protect him. And so he ends up joining this white gang. What are they called? Christian, bro? What's like their official name? Not for this specific gang, just in prison. What are they called? The Aryan Brotherhood, that's it. And so he joins them not just for protection, but he joins them to also feel like he's a part of something, right? But, however, there's a price to that. He can't just waltz in there and be protected without doing services or doing offers for them. And so what ends up happening is we find him getting embroiled into these tasks. He ends up murdering a man. And that's the first turning point we tend to see with the character, which we'll talk about later. But he murders a man, right? And once he murders a man, luckily he doesn't get found out that it's him. However, there's a big fighting scene in the courts, and he doesn't avoid one of the cameras. And one of these cameras catches him killing somebody else to protect this high-value target that the Aryan Brotherhood told him to make sure he protected. And so what was supposed to be 3 months ends up being, do you remember how many years it was? I don't remember exactly.
It becomes 9 years.
Yeah, it becomes 9 years. And it doesn't just become 9 years in the same prison, it becomes 9 years in even higher security prison, where he basically gets to meet this guy, the Beast. And the Beast is almost like the shot caller. He's the one who calls all the shots, right? He's the one who offers him favors in exchange for him doing a job and doing his work. And so once a long enough period goes through, we see him about to leave prison, but we understand now that he's very deep in the Aryan Brotherhood. Very, very deep. He's not just a member, he's what they start calling in the film validated. Right? These are people who are checked, these are people who are known in the organization to be valid, if you will. And so there's this big heist, I wouldn't necessarily call it heist, but there's this big transaction they want to make with the Hispanics. This is actually the exact Hispanic that they protected in the big fight, right? So this is the exact Hispanic he protects in the big fight. So the Hispanic already trusts him a decent amount, but they're basically supposed to sell old weapons, right? Old Russian weapons, I believe, that they got their hands on. And what ends up happening is that he goes through and wanting to finish the deal so he can finally leave this whole thing, right? Because just as he was out to leave prison, the big boss told him, you have to do this job for me. And like, you don't have a choice, basically. He's like, you have to take care of your brothers once we leave prison. I believe I don't know if that's the exact quote, but it's something along those lines.
And the main point as well is if Money decides not to do the job, this guy is threatened to kill his family. So he's not truly free.
Exactly. So he's not truly free. He's outside of prison, but he's still, as cliche as it sounds, within a different prison, right? And so what ends up happening is that he discovers there's a couple traitors in the midst, one of them being his good friend there on the right, who he was supposed to trust. We realize this guy's also in his own little prison, with the love of his life being kind of held captive, not just by the investigators who are investigating the entire Aryan Brotherhood, but also what's happening with the arm dealing. And so to summarize kind of the last part, it ends up being a lot longer. Not that it needs to be necessary, but just to summarize the last stretch of the film, this guy ends up realizing he was about to be betrayed. He decides to get his last laugh on the Aryan Brotherhood leader. And what he does to achieve that is he basically discovers there's a second arms kind of cache. And he basically tips the police or tips the investigators to come at the meeting spot where he's supposed to exchange the arms with the Hispanic. But he does it in a way where they don't suspect it was him, right? They don't suspect it was him. Well, obviously, the investigators figure it out, but the guys on the inside don't necessarily figure out. They just know he botched the job, right? They start getting a bit suspicious. And so what happens at the end is that he confronts this guy right here, right? Our man Money confronts the big boss, the Beast, as they call him in the film. And very, very smartly, the way he's manipulated the entire situation, the way he got himself into that situation, he basically executes him. And by executing him, he executes him in front of this informant, if you will, or this policeman who's paid off. Sorry, I should say not policeman, security guard, prison guard who's paid off. And he makes sure that the prison guard makes it clear he's going to keep his position, but he's working for Money now. And Money, it becomes the shot caller. So I don't know if I missed any little detail that you think is important to mention, Christian, bro, but that's kind of the entire plot.
I think we covered the plot, and hopefully everyone has seen this film. I think the main reason we wanted to choose this film is it's just incredibly enjoyable, and I think it's incredibly enjoyable from a masculine perspective. I think there's just something so captivating about seeing someone go from being, he's relatively kind of feeble at the start of the film, is he? Transform into basically a almost beyond almost like animalistic person. He's capable now of violence at the end. He's powerful. He's respected. He obviously loses his societal respect, that of him being a high up career person, but gains this new kind of, I dare say, kind of like sensual respect, if you know what I mean. He's top dog of the prison. And in a way, like, you can't help but like kind of enjoy watching that. Especially as well, like the whole kind of camaraderie of the gangs. I mean, it's I think specifically in today's world as well, when we don't often feel like as men that we're, belonging in these like proper organized groups with people. It's cool to see people organized based on lines, and obviously those lines being racial in prison. I mean, a big factor of the prison system in the US.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's a weird wholesomeness to it, to be honest with you. But it also kind of, on terms of the masculine point, to add to that, there's almost like there's something to the violence in this case, where you feel like, I don't know how to express it particularly well, to be honest with you. It's just like it's real strength, right? Like, you can't be just manipulative, and you can't just be just a lion, basically, and just attack.
Yeah,
you have to have both that smarts. Exactly, you have to have that smarts, you have to have that planning, you have to know what you're doing, but execute it with violence, if that makes sense. And so, instead of the film being represented as just like these animals, they're fighting each other, they're just violent for no reason. Especially the guy who, let me see if I can find this guy right here. He comes off as like a very calculated person. so the violence almost feels precise, and that just adds another layer of intellect, of masculinity to it. Right? It's not just low IQ, bigoted fighting. It's got something behind it. It's not just an ideology necessarily, but it's just got something behind it that makes it that much more powerful in terms of seeing it on the film as well.
I'll push back slightly because I personally think more of the allure in this film and in general, I guess, with people that are in prison is that the hierarchy is dictated first and foremost by strength. Now, obviously, to like maintain that kind of top dog position, like in this film, I forget Bottles is the character's name, and the Beast. They're obviously smart to be in that position of maintaining it. But first and foremost, that power comes from that position of I can beat you in a fight, and I think that's almost the beauty, dare I say, of the film, isn't it? Of that world, of that prison life, in that you know you're not. It's no longer like in the modern world where the people above you are these kind of pussy middle management types. You're not being bossed around by a woman, or you're not being bossed around by some feeble guy. It is purely this raw hierarchy of strength and of power. It's why people almost have that like a good strong feeling when they go to the gym and you're the strongest one in the room, because it's that unspoken rule of being the powerful person in the room laid out specifically within a power structure. If you get what I'm saying, it's like I think people
I
respect that, and
agree.
they almost
Yeah. I think the reason I made my point specifically was in regard to the books he was reading. I don't know if you remember, there was like a
yeah,
bookshelf
yeah,
that
of
he had at
course.
some point, like the Machiavelli. I can't remember the other one. It's like The Human Animal, I think was the book as well. It basically just highlights the fact that these people know what buttons to push. That's what I meant by like, it's like not just low IQ grunting, and then attacking. Like it romanticizes the violence a little bit in terms of not just making it dumb violence, but like strategic violence.
Yeah, it's calculated,
Yeah.
obviously, but you get
Yeah.
my broader point of like the allure
100%,
is
of
in that
course.
sense of like you're measured by strength in a way, aren't you? And like it's weird in a sense that the film almost it doesn't make you want to go to prison necessarily, but well, it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, the
It's not your
prison
traditional.
workouts. Like it's that scene where they're
Yeah,
like, up, and then it's like one.
yeah,
Like we both thought that that
yeah,
was a
no,
really cool scene, right?
it's
And we did
hard.
prison workouts at the gym afterwards.
Yeah, no, exactly. And if there is just that pure allure, isn't it? You kind of want to you're testing yourself, aren't you? I mean, as well. I mean, the big other thing is obviously like the divide. Everyone is obviously divided on racial grounds, adding to that kind of tribalistic element as well. Like prison, in a way, is kind of fascinating because it's so counter to all the ideals that society has tried to lay out, hasn't it? Because prison is essentially just determined by strength, by power. The groups are organized only on race, nothing else. So do you see what I mean? It kind of like as a social experiment in a way, prisons and the prison system have done away with much of the kind of myths of the liberal world, haven't they? You know,
Yeah.
you're not there clinking up with the people whose ideals you agree with, are you? They're not organizing on who's communist, who's liberal, who believes this is the right path. Is first and foremost essentially just you're hanging with your race, because that's the
Yeah.
first organizing line, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's raw status within that as well. So within each gang, let's say the status goes down to, or the hierarchy goes down to power in terms of strength, in terms of who's the most capable of violence and executing it well. But also within the prison itself, right? Like the gang that ends up getting its way the most is the one that's most willing to be violent, the one that's most willing to back up what they're saying as well. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think when I said like real status, if you know what I mean, it's just on his outside world. We'll do the quick comparison with him as well. Beforehand, obviously, we don't get a deep look into what his life was like before. But he had a lot of status at his job, right? And he had a lot of status
Yes.
in that world, but it was just financial status. There was nothing else to it,
Precisely.
if that makes sense.
And
It was
that's
just
laid bare
him.
when he first steps into the prison, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know, the
exactly. It's very
first thing he
clear.
steps into the prison, that's gone away, hasn't it? It doesn't matter. I mean, there's that great line when he first meets the gang, and it's you know, you're going to put in work for us, and you're not going to be helping us with our computer skills, which is first just a great bit of filmmaking because it's kind of does away with that kind of syrupy Shawshank Redemption style of you know, the wise intellectual building a library in the prison and helping them all out. It's far more gritty and realistic in the sense that these people could give a shit about reading books and learning how to code and whatnot. Fundamentally, if you're going to help them, you're going to help them by stabbing people or smuggling drugs.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that. That's
Well,
the I think the aspect of that simplicity as well was something that it's so weird to say attracted us to it, or
no,
we
but it
liked
does.
it
It
as part of the
does.
film. Like it's just simple, right? Like you don't have to be the smartest guy. You don't have to be the guy who is the wisest. You just have to be the one who is most willing to do the right thing for your gang. And the gang also takes care of you, right? Like that's something I think a lot of other prison films, like I don't know, like maybe they I don't want to say they misrepresented, but they really liberalize prisons in terms of the perspective, like, oh, everybody's out for themselves, nobody likes you. It's like, no, actually, these guys, you have to pay them, but they'll also take care of you. But you can't just step out of line. That's the key thing. You can't step out of line. You'll continuously take care of each other. And that's kind of wholesome. It's like it's very simple in that respect. Like you
Yeah, I
said,
mean, obviously,
there's the racial aspect to it
it's
as
not
well.
portrayed in like a syrupy, wholesome way, but you're right in a way, isn't it? It's that pure simplistic thing, and it's better. I bet it's why like a lot of people enjoy. Almost, I bet there's a lot of people that leave prison probably missing having to kind of navigate a world of foxes, when fundamentally most men would rather navigate a world of lions. They'd rather it be laid out in pure, um, easy, immediate distinctions of power, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
go
I
from
want to pivot
go
very
navigate
quickly.
an office.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah,
say
go on.
to conclude that point, because I want to pivot to the kind of the side of things and when it comes to responsibility and choices and where that leads to in terms of the film itself, because I feel like that's quite a big theme in the film. But on that point, I was reading the Status Game a while back. Very good book, by the way. A lot of people should read it. Actually, it's like I'm pretty sure it's a very based book, I would say by my standards, but it's kind of many people talk about it. I haven't seen it in a lot of based books. But anyway, the author gave an example of a guy who in prison had incredibly high status. I'm pretty sure he was a murderer of some kind, right? Manslaughter. And in the gang, he had incredibly high status. He was even respected by the prison guards because he wouldn't be violent with them necessarily, but he wasn't their friends at all. And they respected that. They're like, okay, cool, this guy's not going to snitch, whatever. When he left prison, because he had done his time, like he was offered a good job. Like he finally got to meet the love of his life, who he kept sending letters to from prison because she met him. Like I think she was a nurse in the prison or something like that, and they actually got together. But he became depressed. And he openly said at one time, I think to her, and then this later on went on to be like a big story in this case, because I can't remember the guy's name, but apparently he's quite famous. He said he misses prison. He said, like, I would kill somebody to get back in there. And when he was asked why, he was like, I don't know. It's just, I belong there. It's simple. I have my routine. I have my people, and they know who I am, and they respect me there, right? And I'm pretty sure he was like a lawyer there in terms of the people who would defend prisoners, or I don't know how the American like prison system works
Yeah,
exactly, but apparently there's like internal lawyers or something like that.
he
And he
had
was like really well
purpose.
known, like to be somebody who could back it up with talk because he was incredibly smart, but also you wouldn't mess with him in the courts. He will get violent. So yeah, that was a very interesting perspective that you
No,
gave there as well.
perfectly, yeah, and it perfectly relates to the allure of the film. I mean, it's hard to kind of then diagnose a solution because obviously, like a solution to the ills of society, because obviously you can't just advocate for, all right, everyone go to prison. I mean, that's obviously dumb. But there should at least be some realization that we're not living as we should in the modern world as men, because we can't glean satisfaction, especially as someone, if you're someone kind of lower down the social hierarchy, you can't glean satisfaction from kind of office politics. Like who the hierarchies of the average office are more based on gossip, if you know what I mean. I mean, we've both worked, minimum wage jobs in these types of establishments where the hierarchy is essentially just delineated on like who's the most popular, if you know what I mean, in terms of
Yeah,
like
who's the
are
most
they kind of
attractive? Who's the most popular? Yeah,
exactly, and it's a far less noble order. I mean, of course, it's a far more civil order, and perhaps I'm going a bit too pro barbarian or whatever on this, but there must be some way, I guess, of kind of reinstating a bit more of a hierarchy of force, because I think people listen to it more. And perhaps it's also why, I mean, Well, I mean, it's something a lot more prevalent as well with blacks, isn't it? Because that's a big thing in these prisons as well, is that the population is fundamentally majority black. And you see it in a lot of African societies as well, is you have to regulate order by force. You have to regulate it like that because people aren't incentivized in the same ways as they are in the West. I mean, partly what's interesting is why you have white prison gangs and why the white prison gangs are so efficient is to keep themselves afloat. Because if you look at the prison populations in America, I mean, won't be too surprising, but the highest population is that of black Americans. So to combat that, the whites had to be super, super organized in how they recruited into prison gang structures. If you are a white person entering a high-level prison in America, odds are you will end up joining the gang because the gang is so desperate to recruit people into their gang. There's less people coming in, so they have to make sure that everyone coming into the prison ends up in that gang. And then obviously they have mechanisms to make sure that you don't leave the gang when you leave prison and you end up coming back in. So they'll obviously put pressure on families to make sure that you stay within the gang's parameters. So I mean, and that's the interesting thing as well, because the film is not doesn't hold its punches, I'd say, in regards to how the prison system works in America, which is surprising for a 2017 film, of course. Like there isn't a single positive black character in the film, if I'm aware. No,
No, I
no.
don't
I mean,
think
like, even
we
the
see
Hispanic
a
guy.
lot of black characters being in the center of it. Like there's the Hispanic guy, but other than that, we don't
But
see
again,
any yeah, they're not really
my
prevalent.
point is like my point is that like within that prison system, there's no kind of we can bridge these racial lines moment that you'd expect, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Because
American
that gives the
History
system.
X.
And I think, yeah, no, precisely, exactly. The American History X kind of twist. This American History X is obviously far more fanciful than this film is, and that's why the American History X. Sorry, I'm mincing my words. Prison scenes don't feel as gritty as they do in Shot Caller. Is because the Shot Caller scenes are filmed and portrayed just purely as they would be, aren't they? He doesn't make friends with the black guy and they become, they overcome the racial barriers, or they all team up to go against the guards, the real common enemy. It is how it actually works in real life. People are dividing on race, people fight based on race, and people kill each other based on race within these institutions. And it's what happens when you let the kind of civil infrastructure go down and you leave it to natural hierarchy. Because if you did just leave it naturally, I mean, the whites in these prisons, and it's why the gangs have formed, they'd be the ones at the bottom of the barrel because there's no organized block to fight. And I mean, I wouldn't really put it past that the average black person could be the average white person in a prison.
I mean, I think that's a good bridge point as well to another theme of masculinity in this, which is responsibility. The way I looked at it a lot of throughout the film, pardon me, was that
That's you.
at some points he didn't feel responsible. He almost felt like he was just going with the flow, right? And you especially see this when he felt like he was forced to do certain things he didn't want to do. At the start, he just wanted to get out of prison. He just wanted to do his time, go with his wife, go see his son. That's all he cared about, right? But then circumstances changed and he'd find himself deeper in with the gang. Circumstances changed. He murdered a man. Now he's murdered another man. Now he's in a higher security prison, etc., etc. But he doesn't let himself be the victim of this. At every chance he gets, he maximizes his strength and he maximizes his position so that he can be in the most favorable position possible, right, and make the most of the situation he's in. And for me, that was the part I enjoyed most of the film, because you see a man who's right, like somebody who's timid, and you feel a bit bad for him. You're like, oh, he just wants to leave, and he keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. But by having all these circumstances that go against his initial goal, he discovers, in my opinion, the wider goal and the goal of, like, quote unquote, closer to true masculinity, which is that you take full responsibility and you maximize your position, which he did. And the zenith of that is when he kills the beast. He kills the beast and he becomes the shot caller. And so he hasn't escaped prison. He hasn't escaped the system. And so when I first watched it, I was like, oh, like, yeah, it's a good ending. It's cool, but I feel kind of bad for him. When I watched it a second, I was like, dude, they're like, I don't care anymore. Like, leaving prison was no longer an agenda by halfway through the film. It just becomes about maximizing his strength and his power. And that, for me, was, in my opinion, the most I don't know. It's the same way like you watch a James Bond film and you walk out. You know, your head's a bit higher, your shoulders are a bit, you know, they're back, and you're
Yeah,
walking with a bit
yeah,
more
yeah,
of a
yeah.
strut. Like when you look at it from that perspective, this film can actually teach you some decent stuff about masculinity. Like measure your power, maximize your power based on your circumstances. Don't victimize yourself. Because when he did victimize himself, he ended up falling to circumstances and just being told what to do. When he maximized, he became the one that told others what to do. And that's something I generally appreciated from the film. And that's not a very, do you know what I mean? Like another good thing about it, not necessarily maybe call the film
Yeah, it's
based, but
very
like
Nietzschean, isn't it?
exactly, like it's very just very Machiavellian. It's very Nietzschean, like you said. It's this is what I want, this is what I'm going to get. And because the circumstances change, cool, they're out of my control. Let me maximize what's within my control. I generally like that part of the film. And that was expressed through
No, I
violence, a
agree.
very masculine urge.
I mean, I've seen that film. I've seen this film twice, as I've already mentioned. I do like it a lot, and it's interesting because the very first time I watched it, I felt so sorry for him the whole time. I thought, what like an unlucky set of circumstances to go through. You know, when the camera spots him, when he stabs him, the fact that he's in prison only for a minor driving incident. You genuinely just feel bad for him. And then the second time watching it, I was genuinely like, okay, this guy's kind of an idiot. It was interesting in that respect of like on the accountability angle. I mean, I don't know what you think. Do you view him as fully responsible? Or are you more on the side that like you feel he's unlucky?
I know 100% I see him as responsible, but I see him as responsible. The way I look at it is that at the start, he was responsible because he was too pathetic. He couldn't hold back. Like he just did what they told him to do, and he couldn't stand up for himself. I'm not saying he had the choice to, but we can say he had the choice. It would just be a very difficult choice to make. That being being raped as one of the consequences probably, and not being protected by the Aryan Brotherhood. But then we see him take a different form of accountability, which is, all right, cool. I've messed up. I'm in the wrong circumstances. Let me maximize them. Like I said, like let me make the most of where I currently am. And that's what I like. That's when I stopped feeling sorry for him because I was like, yeah, the circumstances are against him, but he's actually doing something about it. Whereas at the start, it's almost like he's being taken by the tide. And that's when you kind of think he's an idiot, if you will. Because he's like, oh, he's a bit pathetic. Like, oh, yeah, he's come in and, oh, he stabbed somebody. And yeah, you see a change in his character. But then he goes and tackles that guy and you're like, no, the camera got him. Oh, that's so unlucky. But at the same time, from the second half, when we see him outside of prison especially, he's calculated, he knows what he's doing, and although some of the circumstances go against him, he uses that to his advantage. So that's when I stopped feeling pity and I started feeling respect in a weird way.
Fair enough. What I was more getting at though is the kind of like we've gone over some kind of more meta narratives to the film, but what I'm on about mainly is like the kind of prescribed narrative or metaphor of the film, I think, which is mainly just how easy it is to get trapped in the prison cycle, right? That is the. Do you know what I mean? If you were to take the one key message to a normie from the film, it would just be, okay, shit, it's quite peak that you can end up in a prison for that long, right? You see what I'm saying? Like you go into the system and now
Yeah,
you
of
go into
course.
the prison for 3 years and now you're ending up in there for 12 years. That's like the
Yeah, of
key
course, of course.
message.
But
I was getting
that's why
more
I
at the.
flipped it in terms of looking at it from the perspective of like, it's because he lacked so much control that he ended up going deeper. That's what I'm saying. Whereas when he got
Yes,
control,
I
he
agree.
decided to go deeper. The decisions were his. Whereas in the first part, when he starts going deeper, you feel sorry for him because, like you said, it's so easy to get trapped. It's so easy to, bam, you've killed one person. Now they're getting you to kill a second person. Now you've smuggled drugs. They expect you to do the next job. And the entire time, I'm not saying it would be an easy decision. God knows I can't relate to it at all, obviously. But he could have said no. And he could have dealt with those consequences and not being protected, right? However, he decided not to and then got taken on by the tide, if you will. So that's kind of my perspective. Like, I definitely see what you're saying. Just for me, like, it obviously struck me, but I always looked at it again. I was like, oh, like it's just somebody who was not taking responsibility than somebody who was. But either way, it was easy to go deeper. It definitely wasn't easy to go out, but it's what you do while going deeper. So that's the way I looked at it personally.
I agree to the extent because I do think the film probably tilts towards making him more sympathetic. I would say. I don't know if that's the read you got. I'd say it's shot in a way that makes you feel a bit more pity for him for the instant that he's in. But when you kind of narrow it down a bit at the same time, like Well, it is your fault that you were drunk driving, right? I think we can agree on that.
Yep.
More so than the film makes out. He should probably not have been drunk driving. Secondly, it probably would have been an awful time for him if he didn't join that gang, but he would have got out in 3 years and still had his family. So it's interesting in that way. I do like what you were saying though, is that like in a way he's kind of, to use a metaphor, in a way he's like in the first kind of act of the film, he's like a rock in the waves, isn't he? Just getting washed about. It's at the end he kind of overcomes it, becomes more of the one dictating the wave. But at this point, it's almost a bit too late because he's lost his family now. At that point, obviously his family don't die, but like he's never going to be part of their lives anymore. At the expense of him becoming like one of the top Aryan Brotherhood people. So yeah, I mean, like it's an interesting film in just that respect of responsibility as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll round up the final couple things. I generally believe this film, if you haven't watched it already, obviously I assume you have, and if you haven't watched it, watch it for a second time, because both me and Christian Bro watched it twice. It highlights to us where we're probably, I think the message you get from the film is where you should be kind of looking inwards for. I know that sounds really gay. Like I'm not trying to say like this is a self-reflexive film and you should be using this as like a journaling method or like meditation. But like if you feel motivated or if you feel inspired by the violence, go pick up a fighting sport, right? Like work out harder because it's highlighting to you your masculine urge where it should be directed. So I think this film generally shows some intrinsic masculine things that we're missing in society nowadays. That if we introduced in a quote unquote civil and social way, socially acceptable way, I think you'd benefit a lot from, to be honest. So this film teaches us a lot about masculinity, in my opinion, and in the rawest way possible, which is in prison, right? So because they're not going to show us like tribal wars and stuff like that. It's just going to be a dumb film at that point. But in prison, it had a good message. It was very, very good plot as well. I liked it. But yeah, that's kind of my final synthesis, if you will, of what I took away from the film as well.
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, it's keeping that like raw masculine essence of fulfillment and hierarchy by power, but in a social frame, isn't it? And that's why this film's good. And I guess in practicality in life, yeah, as you were saying, pick up a martial art, fight, go to the gym. If you can outlift the person next to you, you will get that kind of dopamine buzz that feels real as well. I think that's the key difference. There's a real dopamine buzz or hit gained from truly beating another man compared to having the higher office position, right? There is just more respect gained from that. And sadly we are in the society, well, not sadly I guess, but we are in the society of status dictated more by position, that you've gained more through wit, through connection, through far more kind of fox methods than lion methods.
Yeah. And that's it, really. Thank you very, very much for watching. Appreciate it if you left us a like or a comment on your thoughts. That should actually be really interesting because me and Christian Bro will read the comments. So if you have a thought about the video or a thought about the film yourself or the key takeaway was, if you watched up to this point, then please do leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts of what you enjoyed about the film, maybe what you didn't like, or what you took away about the message around masculinity as well.
Nice. And yeah, and join us again for another film review, hopefully next week. We want to make this kind of a weekly endeavor. So, of course, put any recommendations that you have and look forward to some more kind of based, nuanced discussions of some more niche and underappreciated films to come. Thanks for listening.
All right. God bless. Take care.